This week's content will focus on digital signal processing and effects. This week, we will focus on defining the digital and analog types of signal processing and what DSP or digital signal processing refers to. We will talk about essential terminology associated with digital signal processing and what they do, discuss the types of effects, their functions, and basic parameters, and demonstrate the ability to apply effects in a digital audio workstation, automate them, and print them to an audio file. The use of effects is an important feature in the realm of digital audio. We must understand the basic functions of these tools and how to use them correctly. Audio effects are elements added to an audio signal to enhance or alter how it sounds. Each effect module processes the signal in a specific way. For analog audio or analog audio applications, a signal is passed down through a signal path from effect to create the desired result. In the analog realm, remember, we are dealing with a series of electrical cables. Instrument cables are often used to carry line-level signal from effect to effect. A good example of audio effects in the analog realm is the guitarist's pedal board. On the top right of this slide, you can see an example of a pedal board and the effect modules it involves. Some of these effects perform different functions, and you can see the electrical cable carrying mic level or line level signal, from piece to piece. In the studio, analog audio effects are housed in an effects rack. An effects rack houses multiple hardware audio effects modules. In an analog audio studio, or even in digital ones, who prefer to use analog audio in the effects rack, you can see that there are multiple layers of effect modules installed in the effects rack. This picture even has pedals on top. Audio in this type of application must be routed to and from these modules using a patch bay. A patch bay is like a switchboard where you can see the electrical signals are being sent into and out of particular jacks in the patch bay. The patch bay has a panel of 1/4-inch jacks that allows us to connect patch cables to transfer electrical signal from one place to the next. We can also use the aux send and return function of the audio mixer. If you recall from Module 1, we learned where the aux send and return knobs are on your mixer channels. Those map to 1/4-inch jacks on the back of your analog mixer, which serves as an output function and an input function from and to the patch bay, or perhaps an outboard effect module. Regardless, in the analog realm, we still use effect modules, but they are used in an electrical capacity. Signal is routed to each one individually. It is important to note that the path in which, or the order in which we use effects modules does matter. In a digital realm, or in the digital audio workstation, we do not necessarily need to rely on a rack of effects or a patch bay. We can use an array of digital effects housed in the digital audio workstation itself. We can even purchase third-party plugins to install onto the computer and call upon in our DAW. Digital effects are called plugins. They're a program that is housed within the DAW to perform a certain audio process to the digital signal. Plugins get their name from the analog process of plugging in or inserting an analog audio cable, 1/4-inch, into the patch bay or mixer. In the digital realm, we can simply press a button on screen with our mouse. We have a lot more flexibility in a DAW to utilize plugins. Often, the amount of digital effects we can apply to a track or project is quite large, especially with modern computers and their capacities. Most digital audio workstations come with an array of plugins built in. We can also buy third-party plugins to install after the fact. Digital signal processing, or DSP, is the use of digital equipment or computers to perform a variety of signal processing operations to a digital signal. When applying effects in a digital audio workstation, we have the option of applying them locally or globally. We use these terms to differentiate between where these effects are applied. Local effects are plugins that are applied to an individual track or region. These effects and plugins apply only to the digital signal within each individual track or region. For instance, if you are interested in applying delay to only the guitar line or the guitar recording in a multi-track recording, that would be an example of a local effect. Global effects are plugins that are applied to the entire master output of a DAW project. These effects are inserted in the master output signal path and are applied to all tracks and their local plugins. An example of this might be applying an amount of reverb to the entire mix. That would apply reverb to all tracks and their plugins on the output side of the mixer. An example of a local effect is applying delay to the guitar track in a recording session. An example of a global effect is applying dynamic compression to the entire mix. When we work with effects in a DAW, we can apply effects in a variety of ways. We must also consider the signal path or the order in which effects are applied, as well as their local or global affiliation. For instance, if we have a distortion effect after the delay line, all of the delay sounds will be distorted. That order does matter to how the signal is processed. All effects plugins have parameters. Parameters are a set of variables that relate to the specific audio effect in the plugin. In the audio realm, these parameters are often controlled by turning knobs and sliders on a panel. However, in the digital realm, these parameters are instead controlled on the screen with virtual knobs and virtual sliders, or simply text boxes for numbers. These are found in the Effect plugin controls, found either in the plugin's pop-up window or in the effects tray window in a DAW. Every DAW allows you to manipulate effects parameters. Some do them in different ways, but in Logic you can see on our example to the right that in the mixer view you can see the Effect plugin highlighted with the red arrow. Clicking on that box that it is pointing to will open the Effect plugin pop-up window. Since there are so many effect parameters possible, we can sometimes automate those parameters to make our jobs a little bit easier in the mixing or production of a project. Automation is very useful. Automation in the realm of DSP refers to the automatic control of parameters of a DAW or an effect plugin. Essentially, we are programming the computer to turn knobs and sliders for us. This allows us to gradually change or to gradually withhold or change or manipulate a plugin in your track over time. We can use automation to change a mixer and plugin setting over time in a DAW. This is extremely useful, as sometimes it is appropriate for certain portions of a song to have certain effects fade in or out, and we can automate that according to the timeline. Often the view of these automation settings, or the automation view, is found in the timeline as an overlay. This view allows us to choose which parameter to alter and when in the timeline of playback that this change will occur. This is done by creating breakpoints in the automation line by clicking on the automation line with your mouse. We can see all parameters available for automation by opening the automation parameter menu within the automation view. In Logic, this is simply accessed in the timeline view by hitting the A key on your keyboard. This is a very common function, and as you can see, in the example here that each parameter has a different color breakpoint line. And you can see the contours used to create certain kinds of fades, either gradual fades or repetitive fades or immediate ones, depending on the effect that you're automating. This is a very useful tool and something that we will use quite a bit. There are lots of types of effects or plugins that are available, and we can break them down into 3 basic categories, although I'm sure we can think of more. Basic dynamics processing is about managing the levels of intensity either coming in or going out of a track. The dynamic compressor controls the output volume by lowering the loud sounds and boosting the quiet ones. A gate allows audio through if it meets a certain decibel criteria to eliminate background noise. And a limiter limits the decibel level so output will not go beyond a certain decibel setting. This prevents clipping. Dynamics processing is extremely useful. For instance, I'm using a gate on this microphone right now to make these videos. The gate is preventing background noise from the hallway or the rest of my room here to get into the recording. Further, most audio recordings are compressed dynamically in some way, especially in the popular music realm, so that you can hear all the layers on your car stereo. Some tone-based effects are EQ and filters, which alters the timbre of a signal. For instance, you can basically grab a frequency and take it out of any recording if it is causing an issue. You can lighten or darken a sound by enhancing its EQ. Modulation is the modification of a signal or frequency or amplitude with another oscillator. So modulation allows you to provide effects like vibrato or tremolo or other types of manipulation to your sound to give it a rhythmic change. Other modulation types are ring modulation, which makes you sound like a robot. There's also distortion and overdrive, which allows you to control the tone of the input signal so that it intentionally overloads the input gain. This creates a sense of clipping or overdrive. Many guitarists use some sort of overdrive or distortion effect. There are also useful time-based effects. Delay and echo are extremely common and are used to either create a sense of delay or repetitive delay, or also to create a sense of echo or space. Reverb is uniquely used to create a sense of ambiance or room sound. You can use a reverb preset that makes it sound like you're in a cave, makes it sound like you're in a bedroom, can make it sound like you're in a cathedral, all kinds of places that emulate space. Chorus is a series of delay lines spaced very closely together and slightly detuned to give the sense of multiple voices. Flangers are also a delay or time-based effect where it combines delay and modulation to create a whooshing or swooshing sound or a jet engine sound to your signal. Listed here are a series of effects parameters that are common. Some universal effects parameters that are found on most things, especially in a plugin or a digital setting, are a list of presets. Presets are really useful. It is a menu of pre-programmed settings that you can also save your own settings to as a user-defined preset. Presets are often great ways to get started with a plugin. If you click on the preset menu of a plugin, you can often find a descriptive name for those presets and explore what they sound like. The dry-wet mix, in effect, refers to the amount or ratio of original signal versus process signal. This is the dry versus wet ratio. This parameter is very important to control how much of the chosen effect is applied to the original signal. The effect bypass is also very important. it turns off the chosen effect to return only the original signal. This useful function allows you to control or to troubleshoot the sound of an effect and test it out to see if it's something that you really need. In particular realms of dynamics processing, the threshold is a very common parameter. It is the decibel level that the incoming signal must reach in order to engage with the plugin. So for instance, on the gate that is on this microphone, there is a threshold setting that allows my voice to come through, but not the quieter stuff in the background. Tone-based effects often utilize a gain function, or the amount of input gain, as well as perhaps a tone setting or a frequency gain setting, or a frequency setting to change the amount of overtones. In time-based effects, you have delay time, which is sometimes in milliseconds or in seconds, which is the amount of time in between delays. Some delay plugins also incorporate musical time, so that if you have a tempo in your DAW, you can set your delay time to be a quarter note or an eighth note in proportion to the tempo. We will work with all these effects parameters in the digital audio workstations we work with in class, and to explore what they sound like and their effects on audio.